Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I'm your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we're chatting with Brian Henk, president of Pull the Pin Games. His company makes light, approachable strategy games for large groups, one of which is the Zoro dice game. The expansion, Stunts and Allies, is in its final 24 hours on Kickstarter. Brian, welcome to the binge. How you doing?
Thanks, James. Yeah, doing all right. See, it's the final 24 hours, and yeah, it's always a roller coaster on a campaign. Pretty stressful, you know. You got just like this limited amount of time, you know, just to get everything done. Make sure everybody knows about the campaign who wants to jump in on it. So yeah, it's been a little crazy. But
let me just say thanks, because I know how insane the last 48 hours are. So the fact that you've actually carved out 30 minutes to chat with us is so awesome and super cool of you. So thanks again for that. So let's talk a little bit about how you got into this industry. So your company's called Pull the Pin Games. It was formerly Overworld Games, I guess was the name of it before.
Yep.
And why did you change the name? What was the genesis of this name change?
Well, in general, you know, we had these, my business partner, Clayton Skanky is my partner here, partner in crime. We've been working on games, making games for a long time, many years, and using Kickstarter too. So I'm doing it for a while. And at some point we just decided that, you know, we kind of do it. A long time ago, we were like, hey, we can maybe, you know, do this full time. Like this can be our full-time gig. And we don't really have those illusions anymore. It's just something we do for fun. It's just, you know, it's really hard to make money in this industry. Really, really hard. You can do it, but we've kind of given up on that as like, this is going to be our full-time jobs. And we have good jobs and we have, you know, we like stable incomes and everything. So we just do it for fun. But so yeah, I mean, at some point we were just kind of like, okay, we're going to keep, you know, making these games. We're going to do Kickstarter campaigns. And, you know, well, for one thing, Overworld Games, we had this like pixel art logo. And so people thought we made video games. We actually used to, but we don't anymore. Now it's just board games. And so we wanted to get rid of that. And so we just, you know, kind of took a step back. Like this was after like 4 years of making games. We published a whole bunch of them. What are we good at? You know, what are we not good at? What do we want our company to be about? And, you know, what we enjoy making, the types of games we enjoy making are the very, you know, fairly light games, like approachable that you can play with anybody. But then there's still enough strategy that, you know, someone who's a real gamer can still enjoy it. And so that's what we make. We also really like, you know, bringing emotion into the game. Like, you know, a big, usually kind of like, kind of escalates to a point in the game where it's like the big reveal. And that is kind of like, you know, almost like an explosion and like pulling the pin on a grenade and like explode, like, oh, that's the moment. That's the moment you talk about after the game. And so we kind of wanted our brand to fit that. And then we also thought like it'd be cool to have a box that like opens up and you pull a pin to open the box. And so we built the box around that. And so our games all come in a box like that. So you kind of have that experience of pulling a pin when you open up each of our games.
Now, can you put the pin back in afterwards or?
Yeah. It's attached to the box. So it's like a sleeve box. So you like go to open it up, and then it's a magnetic box and you can open it. Looks really nice. And then you just put it back in there, and then you'll pull the pin every time you want to break that out and play it.
I love this idea of knowing who you are, right, as a company. And, you know, often you'll see game companies that kind of have this identity crisis, right? Where they'll have they'll do one game and then they'll do another game. And then all of a sudden they'll go and do a game that's like, you know, D&D based, right? And so they'll do 20-minute to 40-minute games. And also they'll come out with a game that's like a 3-hour long game because they see the allure of the dollars, right? With the plastic crack and things like that on Kickstarter. And you kind of have this kind of uncertainty as a consumer looking at that saying, you know, what do these guys stand for? So, you know, I think it's really cool that you guys have said, you know, we're going to carve off these kind of light but strategy games, fun for everybody. Larger number of players can get in on the action. I call them gateway games myself. So I like those kind of games for like if I go to a game night and, you know, there's maybe some people that are joining that game night for the first time and trying to get into the industry, trying to socialize. something where it really sucks if you only have like a 4-player game that you're playing, right? It's great if you have a game that allows you to maybe go up to 6 players or more, where you can say, hey, why don't you guys come and join us? We're about to start a game and get these people in. So I think that's super cool. I know that the gateway game side of the business takes a lot more education, right? Because the people that you're trying to get into those games aren't necessarily the hardcore Kickstarter people. On the flip side, the benefit is those are the games that are more likely to be at a Barnes & Noble or at a Walmart or at a Target or, one of these retail outlets. So, you kind of have the balance of the two sides. You got to try to figure out what is it you want to go after. So that's pretty cool. How did you guys get into gaming in the first place? And like, what do you guys do for a living? Like, what's your day job?
I'm a software engineering manager. So I manage a team of software engineers, actually just starting a new job on Monday. So I'm excited about that. But I've previously been made mobile apps and websites, and that's kind of what I've been doing for a long time. So yeah, I mean, I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. So, you get used to like a certain salary, and it's hard to go. It would be hard to go to, make board games and, try to make like, a much smaller, amount per year. We used to want to do that, but like, not going to do that. But we got into it. Clayton and I were making games. I used to live with, in the same state as him in South Dakota. And so we played games together there. We played like Magic the Gathering and Robo Rally and, a Hero Quest and D&D, and we played those types of games. And when I moved away out of South Dakota, we still wanted to stay connected, and we still did. And we did that through making video games. And so we made Xbox games and games for the PC and mobile games. And so we did that. He would do all the art and animation, and then I would do all the development. And so that worked well. And then, and eventually though, like it's a lot of work to maintain like mobile apps or, any, an Xbox game, like, cause things change, resolutions on phones change, screen size, processing power, screen size, everything changes, and you have to keep maintaining it, operating system upgrades, that kind of thing. And so we make these games, and then now it's like all we do is support these games that we made a long time ago. We kind of want to go make something new. Yeah. But with board games, you get to do that because you can make it once and manufacture, a couple thousand copies, and you're done. If you want to be, you can make expansions or you can do more print runs, but if you don't want to, you can just be done. And so we really like the appeal of that. So we switched to board games, and we aren't going back.
Was there anything about the video game side that helped inform your design on the board game side?
I wouldn't say, just going through making a game, you have to think about what does my target audience want? What is fun? What is not fun? User interface design is a lot, I would say probably a lot more important in like a digital game, but it's also critical in a, tabletop game too, the graphic design and how that looks and how easy it is to understand. So we learned a lot of lessons that way. And I think on the art direction side, more for Clayton, he learned a lot too about, what works good visually. So we learned some of those kind of small lessons, but it's pretty different, especially from like the business side, there's, it's just way different to try to sell a physical item than a digital one.
Now you guys have licensed, and we'll talk about the Zoro game in a second, but I mean, you've got franchises, right? So you got the Zoro, the dice game, you got Good Cop, Bad Cop, New Salem, Barker's Row, Leaders of Euphoria. So you've got these franchises, and some of these are based on licensed IP. How did you get into the licensing? Like, where was that? Was it something you guys had experience with in the past, or how did you kind of build that bridge?
As I think a lot of Kickstarter creators, we were looking for the magic bullet. So at one point we were like, I know the magic bullet is to get a licensed game. And then you can bring the audience of that IP into your Kickstarter campaign, and you can, make millions of dollars. And there were some campaigns that did that, and they were very successful and made hundreds of thousands of dollars like a long time ago, and maybe even millions. But then for a lot of them, those games never came out, and they they just they didn't price it right so that they had enough margin to handle all the costs that were going to come up. And most of them had just all these minis and those can be super expensive to create as well. So like, I don't know, they made a lot of mistakes and so it looked like that was the magic bullet. And then so like I went out and like found a bunch of licenses to get for us and paid some guaranteed, money to the licensors and then, tried that, that model. And for one thing, I didn't do a good enough job with it. I didn't do a good enough job bringing the fans of that IP to the Kickstarter campaign. I'm still trying to figure out how to do that. And that's, I think, one thing that I would need to improve. And even for Zoro, like there's so many Zoro fans out there, but it's really hard to find them and like to get them to know about the campaign and to know what Kickstarter is. And, a lot of them just don't know anything about Kickstarter. So we thought that was the magic bullet. It's not. And there's also, especially if you don't kind of do it right. But
but how do you find them though? Like, did you just Google them, or did you go through a broker, or how did you find these license holders?
Different ways. So just to go through it, we did Leaders of Euphoria. So that's Good Cop, Bad Cop style with Stonemaier Games using their license. We did the Valiant card game, so the Valiant Comics using their license. Zoro. The Zoro dice game. And then what's the other one I'm forgetting? Total Recall. So that one was another one we did, the movie Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So those are I believe those are all of them that we've done, licensed games. And so, but I think each one I found in a different way. The best way to do it, I think, is to go to licensing conventions.
Okay.
And there's a few big ones.
Yeah.
And so it's all about licensors there saying, hey, here's my property. Who wants to make, stuffed animals or phone cases or whatever it is, and they'll kind of, you can just go to their booth and talk to them about it, or there's also these these brokers that represent a whole bunch of brands, and then you can go to them and say, hey, I can make a board game for one of your licenses. Which one makes the most sense? And you can kind of talk through that with them. So there's a couple of those that I've worked with as well. And so that's how I got a couple of the other licenses.
So with Zoro, what came first? Did you have the game kind of worked out first, or did you kind of go and get the license first and say, okay, we know we want to do something to do with Zoro, we'll get Zoro and then we'll figure out the game? Like it was a chicken before the egg. Which one came first?
Definitely get the license first. Yeah. Cause you don't know which licenses you're going to get. You might have one that you really want. I want to do a Halo game, and you try to get the Halo license and like, that's $50,000 just to as a minimum guarantee to get it. I'm not going to pay that. Or they're like, no, I don't know who you are. I don't want you to make a game in the Halo universe because you're going to screw it up. Or you might, and we don't want to take that risk. So, and there's a whole bunch of things you kind of have to talk through and work it out before you get one. But I entertained a lot of different licenses, considered a lot of different ones, and decided which ones I wanted to pursue that would make a good game, a game I care about, a game I want to make. And Clayton, me and Clayton want to make. And so a lot of things that came into it. But yes, so hopefully that helps.
Yeah, it does. So with Zoro specifically, why don't you walk us through this game? I'm just doing a screen share here for people that are watching live, and people that are listening. We'll try to use descriptive words. Sure. But this campaign, congratulations so far on this. You've obviously gone way over your funding goal. Your funding goal, I believe, was 12. I'm going to put it in Canadian dollars because that's the only way I can see it, and it's always larger, right? So, your goal was $12.5 thousand. You hit $24,000, so you crushed that. Awesome, 420 backers, and this is an expansion off an original game that hit $47,000. So it's clear that this franchise has an audience. Has this game, not even the franchise, but the game itself seems to have an audience that really likes this and is interested in it. When you see the reviews online, people just love the way this game plays. So walk us through kind of how the core essence of this game works. It's a dice game, right? Kind of that Yahtzee style. And then what the expansion kind of brings to the table, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And touching on reviews too, it's funny because we had everybody loved the game, for reviews, except we had one Dice Tower review that was just on the solo game that was not good, but like they just didn't like the solo game. Just cool. That's fine with me. I love it, but that's the one I hear everybody talking about because it was on the Dice Tower, and like they've got like 10,000 views, and people are like, didn't get very good reviews. Like,
not everybody's gonna love your game.
One bad review, and it was only on. Yeah, it's only on a solo game. So, those reviews they can like kind of make or break a game. So it's a Yahtzee style or King of Tokyo. So you're Zoro. You're trying to become the next Zoro. So Zoro's retiring. It's kind of like Mask of Zorro cool. Movie, theme. But so you're trying to prove that you deserve to become the next Zoro. Prove to Zoro that it should be you. So you choose a heroic feat you want to attempt. And then you go there, it has a requirement of dice you need to get, and then it's the 3 rolls like Yahtzee or King of Tokyo to try to get those, to get those dice. And then if you're successful, you can get some equipment. You can, if you get certain heroic feats, you can get additional dice to use that only you can use. But it's mostly about building up a set of equipment that works well together to prepare you for a final villain that comes out. And then whoever can defeat that villain at the end will win the game, and they become the next Zoro. So that's the basics of it. That's
cool. And then this expansion, and the game doesn't take that long to play either, right? You can play this in 20 to 40 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, once you get good at it, it's like a 15-minute game probably. Awesome. But the first time you play, it's probably going to take you 30, 40 minutes to play.
Yeah. I love those games that are like I call them primers, right? So when we have game night, I like the sandwich, right? So I have the primer where you're waiting for people to show up, right? So you got the kind of stragglers come in. So you don't want to do a game that's too long, right? Because then you're into a game and then people are waiting to show up, then they have to wait or they're going to go play some other people. So you got your primer, play a little bit of a longer game, maybe an hour-long game, middle of the night, maybe a couple of those. And then near the end of the night when you have the closers, right? So you have the kind of stragglers that stay to the end. Those are the times I like to pull out these primers again. So that's cool. So how does the expansion work? What do you get out of this expansion?
Yeah, the expansion, and the way we did it was the base game is very, you can play with anybody. Even non-gamers can play this game.
Yeah, it's cool.
And then the next expansion, which was part of the original campaign called Heroes and Villains, that adds just kind of more. It adds more equipment, more scoundrels, more villains, more heroic feats, just more stuff. And they're a little bit more complex, but also a little bit more interesting. And they allow you to do more combos, which people like. So it's like, it'll take you up to the next level, kind of like that's more of like an intermediate gamer they would want that expansion, I think, to give them just kind of more stuff to do and more things to kind of more levers to pull kind of.
Yeah.
And then this expansion, though, kind of takes it to the next level. So there's even more, kind of complexity or things at your disposal as you play the game to take it even to the next level, where you would not want to play this with a non-gamer or probably even a casual gamer. There's kind of too much going on. There's like a mind game of you have an ally. So basically, it adds allies is the main thing.
Yeah.
And your ally goes out to a heroic feat. And if you accomplish a heroic feat where someone else's ally is, their ally gains a level because they're kind of watching you and watching you be successful. Also, if you fail at a heroic feat, your ally will gain a level. So these allies are gaining levels. As they gain levels, they get more abilities that help you, that you can use. And then eventually, if you can get them to the max level, you get an extra die. So there's definitely more going on. There's more scoundrels and villains as well. And those are a little more complex, a little more challenging. And there's a mechanic also that lets you, that is a weakness. Your ally comes in, it gives you good stuff, but it also gives you a weakness that you have to kind of mitigate with the equipment and the abilities that you have and the dice and how you choose to roll them.
Is that the hand, or is that's that yellow hand thing, or is it different for each guy?
Well, yeah, kind of, but it is different for each character. So like that is one of the symbols, and so now you have to get that's grab, and so you would have to get an extra grab every time you fight a scoundrel or a villain. I didn't really talk about scoundrels, but scoundrels kind of come out throughout the game too. In the middle of the game, they're a little more challenging too. But the last thing it does too is it lets you. In the middle of a turn, even if you chose to go to one heroic feat or chose to fight a scoundrel, you can use a stunt token to actually change it based on your first roll.
Yep.
So if you didn't get what you need for the first one, then you can switch to another one. Or if your dice are just kind of not rolling the way you need them to, you can also use stunt tokens to re-roll dice. So those are all the mechanics. So it's like a lot more stuff you can do in this expansion.
And there's something I read, and I'm not sure it was in this one or the prior one, where you can force other players to help you. Is that in this one?
That's one of the abilities of one of the allies that you can get. That is Sergeant Garcia lets you do that. So that's one of the things that he does. But that's one mechanic too I didn't talk about. And it's in the base game, it's in everything. But when you go somewhere, you can choose to have somebody help you. It's kind of a little bit like a Munchkin style thing where like, hey, anyone want to help me on this? And if somebody chooses to do that, you can use their equipment and they get into a fourth role at the end. So like you get a much greater chance that you're going to actually accomplish that heroic feat. But then they get a random equipment as a bonus for helping you. So it's really good for both. And it really brings in, because it goes up to 8 players, the game. So it really brings people in who may be, we don't want them sitting there waiting for their turn for 7 other people to go. This lets them contribute and join in on battles throughout. If they want to help, they can jump in and help.
That's awesome. Kind of reminds me of Catan. I hate playing Catan, by the way. It's one of my bane of my existence, that game now. It's banned from our house. But because we have a couple players that don't think about their turn until it's their turn.
Oh, okay.
Right. So you're just like, it's like watching paint dry, right? For your turn to come back if you're playing more than like 3 players. So I'm glad when I see games like this that have something in there for the people who's when they're waiting for their turn to come. You've got a lot of other cool stuff in this campaign. Like it's almost like someone can kind of customize their version of the game with all these different various like add-ons and things like that. Can you talk, like you got like metal dice, you got like a custom cup. Can you talk about some of this stuff that you decide to kind of, build in? Dice tray is another one.
Yeah. So, using, we have the Zoro license. People love Zoro. And, people really want to, one of the things that I think they want from this game is to really get into the Zoro universe. It was something that I think we did that Total Recall game that I mentioned before, and that one did not fund on Kickstarter. We never made that game, and one of the mistakes we made there was that it was we didn't let people get into that Total Recall universe as much as we could have. We didn't have a whole lot of add-ons. We didn't have, the game is pretty simple. It was a social deduction game. It was a good cop, bad cop style game. And we just didn't add enough Total Recall to it. And so that's one thing we wanted to write in this campaign. We wanted to have other ways for you to kind of, get Zoro stuff, and you can get a dice cup, like a Zoro dice cup.
Yeah.
So you can roll, it's fun to like go, and then, roll your dice. A lot of people like doing that. And we have a Zoro, like a super high quality, like tray that you can roll your dice into so they don't go flying off the table.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff, metal dice too. We have, they're super, super shiny and just like, it's like, Zoro uses a metal like sword when he fights.
Yeah.
And so you can use metal dice when you play the game. And putting all these things together, it's like it's a impressive Zoro experience. More so, than what we do, and we try to keep our games at a low price. So we have smaller acrylic dice in the base game. This lets you have these big chunky, like metal dice too. So it's just kind of it just lets you get more into Zoro than you might otherwise.
That's cool. It's certainly you want to get the dice tray, I think, if you're going to get the metal dice, just so I have a glass tabletop at my house. Yeah. So it's like clang, right? Hopefully you don't smash your table. So in all these campaigns you've done, you guys have done a lot. So how many campaigns have you guys done in totality on Kickstarter?
Just checked, 14 total. 14. I think this is number 14. Yeah, 14 total. So we've been doing it for a while.
So you've got a bit of experience doing Kickstarters now, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Have you found it's formulaic in how you kind of structure them each time going? Like, have you got to a point where it becomes pretty much a formula, or do you have to keep changing it up every time?
Yeah, we change it up. I mean, there's always lessons learned from every campaign. And I always send out surveys too, like right after a campaign usually. And then if I remember after it's been delivered too, so I can get after the campaign, what did you like? What did you not like? What could we have done better? and then we get some feedback that way. And then after it gets delivered, then like, okay, now still like, what can we do better next time? And that helps us improve. So we'll always make improvements, but we do have, pretty set, like, we found these to work and work for what we do and the types of games we make, and the places we think people who like our style of game will be, and for our marketing. And so it's pretty formulaic now, but we always make changes, and we usually try some like weird experiment too on each campaign, at least one.
I guess like any industry, it's always evolving, right? So you're going to get that constant evolution where, what worked a year ago may not be as effective this year. And there could be something new somebody else is trying that it could be kind of that hook that gets you to that next level. What would you say is the hardest lesson you've learned in those 14 campaigns?
I mean, the process of going through a campaign, like, it is an emotional roller coaster. Even after 14, it's rough. You have to have thick skin, and you have to
I call it soul crushing.
That is a perfect term for it. It really can be. And it was originally too, like, even though we had successful campaigns early on, there were times, where it did feel that way, and it was just like depressing. And, there's high highs and low lows. And now, before, they were just like, like major, but then the more we do now, they're still there, but now it's like, it's not as big a deal. Like, and the more you do, the more you get prepared for the questions that come up, and negative comments and how to handle those, and messages from retailers about like, what do they want. Like, I know what retailers want, and I can so I know how to answer their questions. So all those things just kind of get easier. It does get easier, but still, like, it still is stressful.
How do you carry your audience over, or can you carry your audience over from campaign to campaign?
It's surprising. Like, I thought that we would have a huge overlap every single time. I think we will, or, earlier on I did when I was more naive. But what I found now is that there is very little overlap, really. Like, if you're lucky, you'd get 10% from a previous campaign. And that's not from like I know we deliver a good high quality product, and our games are fun, and we are very transparent and communicative, and we deliver on time. Like, we do everything like pretty much right. So there's nothing that I think would keep someone from backing a future campaign of ours, but they still just like don't. And it just really surprises me. Like, these people, you build this kind of community for this game, and you talk to people in the comments and messages and stuff. And I would think they would just come back for the next campaign. But I think people, by the time you do it, like, we'll do like one a year, and people change, maybe they aren't backing Kickstarters the next year. Maybe they aren't, they don't even see the email reminder that comes in when you launch, or, they just kind of go do their own thing, and maybe get into other types of games, or I don't know, but for some reason they don't. But we did just start a loyalty program over the last year, and so we have a mobile app, and I'm a software engineer, so I can just make it, and it's easy. I wouldn't recommend other people do it, but you can download the mobile app on Android or iOS, and you can log in with your Kickstarter email. It'll list all the campaigns you back from us, and then you get perks for the more things, I guess, you've backed, the more points you gain, and you'll get a bigger discount on shipping that way. You can get a promo code for a discount on shipping, which is really cool. That's what I think most people want. But you can also get more involved in the process of making games, and come to our playtesting sessions and private sessions, and where we'll play a game with you. Like, creators will come play new games or existing games, and so you have the option of doing that. So
how have you found the shipping rates change? It seems to be all over the board game industry now. Everybody's talking about how shipping rates have changed. Have they changed much for you?
Yeah. I mean, for everybody. I mean, it's freight shipping. I think you're talking about freight shipping. So that's, for those who don't know, shipping from wherever you manufacture, like in China, to fulfillment centers who are going to ship it out locally. So that freight shipping part, where you put it on a big boat and send it out to different fulfillment centers, that's what's gone up like 3 times as much as it was a year and a half ago, or more. So it's that used to be like, maybe $1 per game that you'd spend on that. And so that was like, I can absorb that. But now it's like $3 per game or $4 or $5 per game. And when you have a game that's $20, you can't just absorb, a $4 per copy increase.
Yeah.
So you got to do something about it. So,
I think the good news is that everybody is talking about it. And I think so that's kind of almost priming the pump, so to speak, right? So I think enough people are talking about that people can start expecting that they are unfortunately going to start seeing the average game cost go up to accommodate some of this. VAT taxes is another big one in Europe as well, right?
Yep.
So you've created these franchises, and how are you guys moving forward? Are you going to continue to kind of add on to these franchises and build, these worlds out? Or do you have some new concepts that you guys are going to come forward with?
Yeah. And we are, it kind of depends. I mean, it depends on what we want to do, what we feel like doing, what we hear from other people who are playing the games. Like, I really want a good cop, bad cop expansion, or people get, really excited about, or the Zoro dice game. And, like, we need another expansion that does all these things. And people on this campaign have been talking about that, like ideas for the expansion. And we've been working on different modules for Zoro, also for Good Cop, Bad Cop. We've been playtesting our next expansion for that. It's going to happen. But it's just a matter of when it fits with kind of what we want to do and what we think, makes sense for the company. But next, we've done 2 expansion campaigns in a row. So it's time for a new base game.
Okay.
So our next new base game, it's called Ostrich Scramble. That could change.
Oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah, but it's just you're an ostrich and you're trying to clothe your ostrich. It's running around in its underwear, trying to clothe your ostrich, but you're like bouncing around trying to grab these garments and like using these gadgets against the other ones. It's just like zany, wacky fun.
Oh, it's awesome.
That things are not going to go as planned. So we're heavily playtesting that one. That'll be the new next base game that we make. So we're excited about that one.
No, that's wild. Well, for anybody that wants to back this particular Kickstarter campaign, you are in your last 19 hours. I encourage people to check out the campaign page. I'm going to place it in the show notes, so I'll make it very easy for everybody. If you're watching the video or if you're listening to even the podcast, check out the show notes. The link to the Zoro dice. So it's the Zoro dice game. Is that how it's going to show up in the
Zoro
search?
Dice game? Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then so if somebody wants to kind of join your following for Pull the Pin, because there's going to be a lot of other properties that they may be interested in as well. How best do they follow you guys?
We're everywhere that you would expect us to be. Find us on Twitter and Instagram, and we're Pull the Pin Games on those platforms. You can join our newsletter. That's also good. We only send something out like maybe once a quarter.
Yeah.
Really, it's mostly when we launch a Kickstarter campaign or like we have something coming to stores. Pretty rare. So we will be nice to your inbox. But yeah, join our newsletter at pullthepingames.com. And so that's a good way. I'm on Twitter as Forbidden Limb. And that I post mainly about like game design, like, news and, tips and tricks and stuff. So,
and your podcast too, right? You get into the business of board games on your podcast. It's literally called Board Game Business Podcast, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Come check that out. Jeremy Commander is my co-host on that. And cool. So we just talk about the business side and we really get into the nitty-gritty details. And if that is interesting to you, then check it out, Board Game Business. If you're just into like playing games and reviews and stuff, probably not. You're not going to find what you want there.
Well, we seem to have a big mix of listeners of this podcast, and I know there's a lot of people that reach out to me asking questions specifically about the business side. So it sounds like a cool podcast to check out as well if anybody's interested. Brian, I want to wish you all the best on this campaign. You're crushing it. It's doing amazing. Can't wait to see where it ends up. I guess when I wake up tomorrow and I check the stats, we'll see how much further you went past that 20,000. But as we all know, hockey sticks in the last 48 hours, so I assure you got lots of dollars still pouring in. And good luck in this coming year. You take care.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. All right. This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply join the Facebook group Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.